The police cruiser's flashing lights reflected off my workshop windows at 6 in the morning, and I knew exactly who had called them before the officers even stepped out of their vehicle. I had been up for an hour already, working on installing heated fuel filter systems on 3 diesel trucks parked in my driveway. The coffee in my hand was still hot, and I was covered in diesel fuel and grease when I saw the patrol car pull up. My name is Frank Zimmerman, and I had lived in the Pleasant Grove subdivision of Omaha, Nebraska, for 5 years without any problems until Karren Brennan became the HOA president 6 months ago. The 2 officers approached my garage, their expressions neutral but alert. I set down my wrench and walked out to meet them, wiping my hands on a rag that was probably making things worse rather than better. "Morning, officers," I said, trying to sound as casual as possible despite my racing heart. The older officer, whose nameplate read Martinez, nodded. "Morning. We received a complaint about some kind of illegal fuel storage or modification happening at this address. Mind if we take a look?" I felt my jaw tighten but managed to keep my voice level. "Of course. I am a diesel mechanic. I have been installing heated fuel filters on these trucks. It is completely legal and actually a standard practice for preventing fuel gelling in cold weather." The younger officer, Thompson, looked past me at the trucks. "Fuel gelling. When temperatures drop, diesel fuel can turn into a gel, which clogs the fuel system and prevents the engine from running. Heated fuel filters keep the fuel at the right temperature to prevent that. It is industry standard, especially here in Nebraska where winters get brutal." Martinez pulled out a notebook. "Who made the complaint?" "I would bet my entire shop it was Karren Brennan from the HOA," I said, unable to keep the frustration from my voice. "She has been harassing me about my work for the past 2 months. Thompson walked closer to examine the trucks. "These are customers' vehicles." "Yes. 2 belong to local trucking companies, and 1 is owned by a farmer from outside Bellevue. I run a legitimate diesel repair business from my home. I have all the proper permits and business licenses." Martinez made a note. "Can we see those permits?" I led them into my garage, which was set up as a professional workshop with proper ventilation, tool cabinets, and safety equipment. I grabbed my file box from the office area in the corner and pulled out my business license, my home occupation permit approved by the city of Omaha, my EPA certifications, and my insurance documents. Martinez examined each one carefully while Thompson continued looking around the workshop. Everything was in order because I had made sure of it when I started my business. "This all looks legitimate," Martinez finally said. "What exactly did the complaint say?" "Dispatch said something about illegal fuel storage and potential fire hazards," Thompson replied, reading from his radio unit. "The caller claimed there were exposed heating elements and diesel fuel all over the property." I felt anger rising in my chest. "That is completely false. The heated filters are enclosed, sealed systems. They are designed specifically for safety. And yes, there is some spilled diesel when you are working on fuel systems, but I have proper containment and cleanup procedures. I have absorbent mats, spill kits, and proper disposal contracts." Martinez looked at me directly. "Has the HOA been giving you trouble about running your business?" "You have no idea," I said, the frustration finally breaking through. "Karren Brennan has sent me 3 cease and desist letters, 4 violation notices, and she shows up here at least once a week to take pictures and harass my customers. She claims I am running an illegal commercial operation, but my home occupation permit specifically allows for this type of work." Thompson walked back over. "I do not see any violations here. These systems look professional." "Because they are professional," I said. I have been a certified diesel mechanic for 15 years. I worked at Kenworth before starting my own business. Every installation I do meets or exceeds manufacturer specifications and safety standards. Martinez handed back my paperwork. We will note in our report that everything is legitimate. However, if the HOA has specific complaints about noise, traffic, or other issues that might violate your home occupation permit terms, that would be a civil matter between you and them. The permit allows for customer vehicles on site, I said quickly. Up to 4 at a time. I never exceed that. And I only work between 7 a.m. and 7 p.m. on weekdays and 9 to 5 on Saturdays. No Sundays, all within the permit restrictions. Sounds like you have done your homework, Thompson said with a slight smile. After the officers left, I tried to get back to work, but my concentration was shot. The heated fuel filter installation on the first truck was nearly complete, but I found myself double-checking every connection, every wire, every seal. The last thing I needed was for something to actually go wrong and give Karren ammunition. My phone rang just as I was tightening the final bolt on the filter housing. It was Derek, the owner of the Freightliner I was working on. "Hey Frank, my driver said there were cops at your place this morning. Everything okay?" I sighed. "Yeah, just the HOA making trouble again. Everything is fine. Your truck will be ready by noon." "Man, that HOA lady sounds like a real piece of work. You need me to vouch for you or anything?" "I might take you up on that eventually," I said. "Thanks, Derek." After hanging up, I finished the installation and ran a complete system test. The heated filter kicked on perfectly, maintaining the fuel temperature at exactly 50 degrees Fahrenheit, well above the gelling point for winter diesel. I documented everything with photos and detailed notes, adding them to my work order file. I was starting on the second truck when I heard a car door slam in my driveway. I looked up to see Karren Brennan marching toward my garage, her phone already out and recording. "You were supposed to cease all commercial operations," she announced loudly before she even reached the garage door. "I called the police this morning and they should have shut you down." I took a deep breath and set down my tools. "Karren, the police came, they inspected everything, and they confirmed that I am operating completely legally. I have all the proper permits." "Your permits are invalid," she said, her voice rising. "The HOA covenants clearly state that no commercial businesses can be operated from residential properties." "The HOA covenants cannot override city permits," I replied, trying to keep my voice calm. "I checked with a lawyer before I even applied for my business license. As long as I comply with the city's home occupation permit requirements, the HOA cannot stop me." She stepped closer, her phone camera pointed at the truck I was working on. "You are storing hazardous materials. You are creating fire risks. You are bringing commercial vehicles into a residential neighborhood. These heated fuel filter systems are not hazardous," I said firmly. "They are safety equipment. They prevent fuel gelling, which is a serious problem for diesel vehicles in cold weather." "Any diesel mechanic in the country would tell you the same thing." "I want to see proof that these heating elements are safe," Karren demanded. "I want independent verification." "Fine," I said, surprising both of us. "I will have a certified diesel mechanic from an independent shop come and inspect my work. Will that satisfy you?" She lowered her phone slightly. "It needs to be someone certified, not one of your friends." "I will call Midwest Diesel Technologies in downtown Omaha," I said. "They are one of the biggest diesel repair facilities in the state. They have no connection to my business." "Will that work?" Karren seemed caught off guard by my agreement. "Fine. And until they verify your work is safe, you need to stop all installations." "No," I said firmly. I have customers depending on me. These trucks need to be back in service. I am not stopping my legitimate business based on your unfounded complaints." Her face flushed red. "I will get a court injunction." "You are welcome to try," I said. "But you will lose, and you will waste HOA money on legal fees for nothing. My permits are valid, my work is safe and legal, and you have no grounds for an injunction." She turned and stormed back to her car, slamming the door hard enough that I was surprised the window did not crack. I watched her drive away, then pulled out my phone and called Midwest Diesel Technologies. The owner, Ray Patterson, answered on the third ring. I had met him a few times at industry events and we had a professional relationship. "Ray, this is Frank Zimmerman. I need a favor." "Actually, I need an official inspection." I explained the situation with the HOA and Karren's complaints about the heated fuel filters. Ray listened without interrupting. "Heated filters for gelling prevention," Ray finally said, and I could hear the disbelief in his voice. "She is complaining about heated fuel filters. That is standard equipment, Frank. Every diesel vehicle in cold climates should have them." "I know," I said. "But she is convinced I am creating some kind of fire hazard. She has already called the police once today." "I need independent verification that my work meets industry standards." "I can send someone over this afternoon," Ray said. "No charge. This is ridiculous enough that I want to see it for myself. What time works? Any time after 2 would be great." I should have all 3 installations finished by then. "I will be there at 2:30, Ray said. "And Frank, document everything. This sounds like harassment." After the call, I got back to work with renewed focus. The second installation went smoothly, and I started on the third truck just after 11. This one was the farmer's pickup, a heavy-duty diesel used for hauling equipment and supplies. The owner, Bill, had called me specifically because his truck had gelled up twice last winter, leaving him stranded both times. I was testing the system when my neighbor Tom walked over. He was retired and spent most of his time working in his yard, which meant he had seen most of Karren's visits. "Saw the cops this morning," Tom said. "Karren again?" "Yeah. She claimed I was storing hazardous materials and creating fire risks." Tom shook his head. "That woman is going to get the HOA sued. She has been harassing half the neighborhood about something or other. The Johnsons down the street got violation notices because their mailbox was the wrong shade of white." "Wrong shade of white," I repeated. "Apparently it was eggshell instead of pure white. She made them repaint it." Tom leaned against my workbench. "A bunch of us are talking about calling a special meeting to vote her out as president. You interested in joining?" "Absolutely," I said. "This has gone too far." "I will let you know when we have enough people," Tom said. "We need at least 30% of homeowners to call for a special election according to the bylaws." After Tom left, I finished the final installation and ran complete diagnostic tests on all 3 systems. Everything worked perfectly. The heated elements maintained proper fuel temperature, the thermostats cycled correctly, and there were no leaks or electrical issues. I took extensive photos and videos of each system in operation. Ray Patterson arrived at exactly 2:30, driving a Midwest Diesel Technologies service truck. He was in his 50s, with gray hair and the weathered hands of someone who had spent decades working on engines. "Show me what you have got," Ray said after shaking my hand. I walked him through all 3 installations, explaining the systems I had used, the specifications, and the safety features. Ray examined everything carefully, checking connections, measuring temperatures, and reviewing my documentation. "This is textbook work, Frank," Ray finally said. "These installations are exactly what I would expect from a qualified diesel mechanic." The heated filters are appropriate for the application, properly installed, and completely safe. In fact, I would say these vehicles are now safer than they were before because their operators will not experience fuel gelling and potential engine damage. Can you put that in writing? I asked. Absolutely. I will write up a formal inspection report on company letterhead. I will include my certifications and note that these installations meet or exceed industry standards. Ray paused. Can I ask you something? What exactly does this HOA president think is dangerous about heated fuel filters? I honestly do not know, I said. I think she just does not like that I run a business from my home and is looking for any excuse to shut me down. Good luck with that, Ray said. This is completely legitimate work. Any diesel mechanic in the country would tell her the same thing. Ray left to write up his report, promising to email it to me by the end of the day. I called my customers to let them know their trucks were ready. Derek arrived first to pick up his Freightliner. How's she running? Derek asked as I handed him the keys. Perfect. The heated filter will keep your fuel flowing even if temperatures drop below zero. Your driver will not have to worry about gelling anymore. Worth every penny, Derek said, writing me a check. And hey, if that HOA lady gives you any more trouble, I know a good lawyer. My cousin handles property disputes. I might need that number, I said. The other two customers picked up their vehicles over the next hour, both satisfied with the work. Bill, the farmer, was especially relieved. I cannot afford to have that truck gel up during calving season, he said. Being able to get to my barn in the middle of a cold night is critical. This gives me peace of mind. As evening approached, I cleaned up my workspace and reviewed Ray's inspection report, which had arrived by email as promised. It was thorough, professional, and completely vindicated my work. The report specifically stated that heated fuel filters were standard equipment for diesel vehicles in cold climates, and that my installations met all relevant safety and industry standards. I was feeling better about the situation when Karren's car pulled into my driveway again. This time she had someone with her, a thin man in his 40s wearing a suit that looked expensive. This is Howard, Karren announced as they approached. He is an attorney representing the HOA. We are here to formally notify you that you are in violation of community covenants and must cease all business operations immediately. The attorney, Howard something, handed me a document. I scanned it quickly. It was a cease and desist letter claiming multiple covenant violations and threatening legal action if I did not shut down my business within 48 hours. I have a home occupation permit from the city, I said calmly. The city permit supersedes HOA covenants. I also have an independent inspection report from a certified diesel mechanic confirming that my work is safe and meets industry standards. The HOA covenants predate your permit, Howard said in a flat voice. The deed restrictions specifically prohibit commercial operations. Home occupation permits are allowed under Nebraska state law, I countered. HOA covenants cannot violate state law. If you try to enforce this, I will sue the HOA for harassment and interference with a legitimate business. Karren's face turned red again. You are creating hazards in this neighborhood. No, I am not, I said firmly. And I have proof. Here is the inspection report from Midwest Diesel Technologies confirming that my heated fuel filter installations are completely safe and meet industry standards. I forwarded Ray's report to both their email addresses right there, using my phone. Howard's phone buzzed and he opened the email, reading the report with a frown. This does not change the covenant violation, Howard said after a moment. Then I will see you in court, I replied. Because I am not shutting down my business based on invalid threats. They left, and I immediately called Derek's cousin, the property dispute lawyer. His name was Michael Foster, and he agreed to meet with me the next morning. That night I barely slept, reviewing documents and preparing my case. I had my business license, my home occupation permit, RAI's inspection report, photos and videos of my installations, customer testimonials, and a log of every interaction with Karren, including dates, times, and what was said. Michael Foster's office was in a modern building near downtown Omaha. He was younger than I expected, probably in his early 30s, but Derek had assured me he was sharp. "Derek told me about your HOA situation," Michael said after we settled into his office. "Walk me through everything from the beginning." I spent an hour explaining the timeline, showing him all my documentation, and describing Karren's escalating harassment. Michael took notes and asked detailed questions. "Okay, here is the situation," Michael finally said. "You are absolutely in the right legally. Home occupation permits issued by the city do take precedence over HOA covenants as long as you are complying with the permit terms. From what you have shown me, you are following all the rules. So the HOA cannot shut me down. They can try, but they will lose. However, this could get messy and expensive. HOAs sometimes pursue actions even when they know they will lose, just to harass people into compliance. So what do I do?" Michael leaned back in his chair. "We send them a response letter. I will cite the relevant state laws, point out that your permit is valid, include the inspection report, and warn them that if they continue harassment, you will sue for damages and attorney fees. That usually gets HOAs to back off. And if it does not, then we actually sue them. But honestly, most HOA attorneys will advise their clients to drop it once they see a real legal response. This Howard guy should know better than to push a case he cannot win." I paid Michael a retainer, and he promised to have a response letter sent to the HOA within 2 business days. I left his office feeling more confident, but still frustrated that I had to spend money defending myself against baseless accusations. The next few days were relatively quiet. I had 2 more customers schedule heated fuel filter installations, both referred by Derek. The work went smoothly, and I made sure to document everything even more thoroughly than usual. Michael's letter was delivered to the HOA on Thursday. Karren called me Friday morning, her voice tight with anger. "Your lawyer's letter does not change anything," she said. "The board is voting next week on whether to file a lawsuit against you." "Karren, you are wasting HOA money," I said. "You are going to lose. Multiple lawyers have told you that my business is legal." "We will see about that," she snapped and hung up. That afternoon, Tom stopped by with good news. "We have got 35% of homeowners signed onto the petition for a special election. We are submitting it to the board tomorrow." "How did Karren react when you told her?" "We have not told her yet. The bylaws say we submit it directly to the board secretary, not the president. Howard the attorney is actually the secretary, so he will receive it." "Will he tell Karren?" "Probably, but by then it will be official. The bylaws require the election within 30 days of a valid petition." Over the weekend, I finished 2 more installations and started getting calls from other diesel owners who had heard about my work. Word was spreading, which was great for business but also made me nervous about Karren's reaction. Monday morning brought a certified letter from the HOA. Inside was a notice that the board had voted to file a lawsuit seeking an injunction against my business operations. The filing was scheduled for Wednesday. I immediately called Michael. "They are going ahead with the lawsuit." "I saw the notice," Michael said. "Do not worry. Let them file it. We will respond with a countersuit for harassment, abuse of process, and attorney fees. This is actually good for us because now we have clear evidence of their overreach." "This is insane," I muttered. "Welcome to HOA disputes," Michael said dryly. "I have seen HOAs spend $50,000 fighting over a shed color. The upside is that when they lose, they often have to pay your attorney fees too." Wednesday arrived and I met Michael at the courthouse. Karren was there with Howard and another board member named Patricia. The judge was a woman in her 60s named Henderson, who looked thoroughly annoyed before the hearing even started. Howard presented the HOA's case first, arguing that I was violating deed restrictions and creating hazards in the neighborhood. He presented photos of trucks in my driveway and copies of noise complaints that I had never seen before. "Your Honor, the defendant is operating a commercial diesel repair facility in a residential neighborhood," Howard said. "This creates noise, traffic, and safety concerns for other residents." Judge Henderson looked at me. "What is your response?" Michael stood. "Your Honor, my client has a valid home occupation permit from the city of Omaha. The permit specifically allows for the type of work he is doing. He complies with all permit restrictions regarding hours, number of vehicles on site, and noise levels. The HOA's attempt to enforce their covenants against a city-approved business is invalid under Nebraska state law." "What about the safety concerns?" the judge asked. Michael handed her a copy of Ray's inspection report. "This is an independent inspection from a certified diesel mechanic at one of the largest diesel repair facilities in the state. It confirms that my client's work meets industry standards and poses no safety risks. The work in question involves installing heated fuel filters, which are standard safety equipment for diesel vehicles in cold climates." Judge Henderson read the report silently. "What are heated fuel filters?" "They prevent diesel fuel from turning into gel in cold weather," I explained. "When diesel gels, it clogs the fuel system and the engine will not run. Heated filters keep the fuel at the right temperature to prevent that. It is completely standard equipment." The judge looked at Howard. "Is the HOA claiming that standard automotive safety equipment is hazardous?" Howard hesitated. "We are concerned about the heating elements and potential fire risks. According to this inspection report, the systems are fully enclosed and meet all safety standards," Judge Henderson said. "Do you have any evidence to contradict this report?" "We believe an additional independent inspection is warranted," Howard said. "On what basis?" the judge asked sharply. "This report is from a certified professional with no connection to either party. Unless you have actual evidence of safety violations, I do not see grounds for an injunction." Michael spoke up. "Your Honor, this is the third attempt by the HOA to shut down my client's legitimate business. He has been harassed for months, had the police called on him for completely legal activities, and now faces this baseless lawsuit. We are filing a countersuit for harassment and abuse of process." Judge Henderson flipped through the case file. "I am denying the HOA's request for an injunction. The defendant has proper permits and there is no evidence of actual safety violations or covenant breaches that supersede city permits. The HOA may not use its covenants to prohibit a city-sanctioned home occupation." Karren stood up suddenly. "This is ridiculous. He is running a diesel truck repair shop in our neighborhood." "Madam, please sit down," Judge Henderson said firmly. "The court has made its ruling." "But the noise, the smell, the commercial vehicles," Karren continued, her voice rising. "Madam," I said, "sit down. If you continue to disrupt these proceedings, I will hold you in contempt." Howard pulled Karren back into her seat, whispering urgently to her. Judge Henderson looked at him. "Counselor, I suggest you advise your client about the risks of pursuing frivolous litigation. This case should never have been filed. The defendant's attorney has indicated he will seek fees, and based on what I have seen, I am inclined to grant that request." We left the courthouse with Michael practically grinning. That went as well as we could have hoped. Now we file the countersuit and go after them for your attorney fees plus damages. "How much can I get?" I asked. "Depends on what we can prove for damages." "Lost work time, stress, reputation damage if she has been telling people your work is unsafe, plus your attorney fees. We could be looking at $20,000 to $30,000 easily." Over the next week, life started returning to normal. I continued doing installations, and my business actually grew because word had spread about the HOA situation. Several diesel owners specifically sought me out because they respected that I had stood up to the HOA harassment. Tom updated me regularly on the special election planning. The HOA board had initially tried to delay it, but Howard had apparently advised them that they had to follow the bylaws. The election was scheduled for 3 weeks out. Then things took a strange turn. I was working on a fuel system one morning when a white van pulled up. 2 men in suits got out and approached my garage. "Frank Zimmerman?" the first one asked, showing me a badge. "I am Inspector Richards from the Nebraska Department of Environmental Quality. We received a complaint about improper diesel fuel storage and potential environmental violations." My heart sank. Karren had escalated again. "Come in," I said. "I have proper storage and disposal procedures for all fluids." I walked Inspector Richards and his colleague through my entire setup. I showed them my sealed diesel storage tank, my spill containment systems, my absorbent materials, my contracts with licensed waste disposal services, and my records of all fluid handling. Richards examined everything methodically. After an hour, he finally nodded. "Everything looks compliant. You have proper secondary containment, appropriate disposal contracts, and good record keeping." "Who filed the complaint?" "The HOA president, Karren Brennan. She has been harassing me for months trying to shut down my business." Richards frowned. Filing false environmental complaints is a serious matter. It wastes state resources and can result in penalties. "Is there anything I can do about that?" "Document this inspection and the outcome. If she continues filing false complaints, there could be consequences for her." After the inspectors left, I called Michael immediately. "Karren filed a false environmental complaint. State inspectors just finished checking my entire operation. Everything is compliant." "Get a copy of their inspection report," Michael said. "That is more evidence of harassment for our countersuit." I requested and received the inspection report within a few days. It stated clearly that my facility was in full compliance with all environmental regulations regarding diesel fuel storage and handling. The special election was now 2 weeks away, and Karren seemed to be getting more desperate. I heard from Tom that she had been going door to door trying to convince homeowners to vote against the recall, claiming I was part of some conspiracy to take over the HOA. Then she made her biggest mistake. I was at the hardware store buying supplies when I ran into Bill, the farmer whose truck I had worked on. He looked uncomfortable when he saw me. "Frank, I need to tell you something. Karren came to my farm yesterday. She tried to convince me to sign a statement saying your work on my truck was unsafe and caused problems." "What did you tell her?" I told her no, of course. The truck runs great and I have not had any fuel gelling issues, but she would not take no for an answer. She kept pushing, saying she would pay me to sign the statement. My blood ran cold. "She offered to pay you to lie." "Yeah, I kicked her off my property and told her not to come back, but I thought you should know." I thanked Bill and immediately called Michael. "Karren tried to bribe one of my customers to sign a false statement about my work." There was a long pause. "Can your customer testify to that under oath?" "I will ask him, but he seemed pretty angry about it. I think he would." "Frank, if she is soliciting false testimony, that is not just civil harassment anymore. That could be criminal witness tampering or fraud. We need to document this carefully." Michael arranged to meet with Bill, and the farmer agreed to provide a sworn statement about Karren's visit and her offer to pay him for false testimony. Michael also advised contacting the police about the potential criminal activity. I went to the Omaha Police Department and filed a report about the attempted bribery. The officer who took my statement looked concerned. "This is related to the HOA dispute?" he asked. "Yes. She has been trying to shut down my business for months. Now she is trying to pay people to lie about my work being unsafe. We will investigate. Do you have the witness who can verify her offer?" I provided Bill's contact information, and the officer said a detective would follow up. I left the station feeling like things were finally reaching a breaking point. The special election was now 1 week away. Tom told me that 32 homeowners had signed up to run for the board positions, including himself. The election would replace all 5 board members, not just Karren. "People are fed up," Tom said. "It is not just about you anymore. Karren has been harassing people all over the neighborhood. The Johnsons with the mailbox. The Carters got cited because their lawn was a 1/4 inch too tall. The Mendez family got a violation notice for having their garage door open during the day. People have had enough." The Saturday before the election, I was working in my garage when Detective Sarah Morrison from the Omaha PD arrived. She was professional and direct. "Mr. Zimmerman, I have been investigating your complaint about Karren Brennan. I have spoken with Bill Patterson, and he confirmed that Mrs. Brennan offered to pay him for a false statement about your work. I have also spoken with several other homeowners in your neighborhood who report similar harassment from Mrs. Brennan, though not involving bribery." "What happens now?" I asked. "I am going to interview Mrs. Brennan. Depending on her responses, charges may be filed for attempted witness tampering and fraud. I wanted to give you a heads up that this might escalate quickly." "Thank you, Detective." "One more thing," Detective Morrison said. "Have you experienced any direct threats or property damage from Mrs. Brennan?" "No direct threats. Lots of harassment, false complaints to various agencies, the lawsuit that got dismissed. But no violence or property damage." "Good, keep it that way. Do not engage with her directly if you can help it. Let the legal process handle this." The special election was held on a Tuesday evening at the neighborhood community center. Nearly 200 homeowners showed up, the largest turnout Tom had ever seen for an HOA meeting. Karren tried to give a speech defending her tenure as president, but she was booed by several attendees. The vote was conducted by secret ballot, overseen by Howard the attorney, who seemed eager to distance himself from the controversy. When the results were announced, Karren and all 4 other board members had been voted out by overwhelming margins. Tom was elected president with 78% of the vote. The 4 other new board members were all homeowners I knew casually, all reasonable people. Karren left the meeting quickly, her face red and her hands shaking. I actually felt a moment of sympathy for her before remembering everything she had put me through. 2 days after the election, Detective Morrison called me. "Mr. Zimmerman, I wanted to inform you that we are filing charges against Karren Brennan for attempted witness tampering and filing false police reports. The false environmental complaint to the DEQ may result in additional charges from that agency." "What kind of penalties are we talking about?" "Witness tampering is a felony. She could face jail time if convicted. The false reports are misdemeanors, but they add to the pattern of behavior. The prosecutor believes we have a strong case. Thank you for taking this seriously, Detective. People need to understand that HOA disputes do not give them license to break the law. Mrs. Brennan crossed several lines. The new HOA board held their first meeting the following week. Tom called me beforehand. We are going to formally withdraw the HOA's lawsuit against you and issue an apology. We are also going to send letters to the police, the DEC, and anyone else Karren filed false complaints with, clarifying that the HOA does not support those actions and that your business is legitimate. I appreciate that, Tom. Frank, I am sorry you had to go through all this. Karren went way too far. The formal withdrawal and apology came within days. Michael filed a motion to dismiss the countersuit in exchange for the HOA paying $15,000 for my attorney fees and $3,000 for damages. The board agreed immediately. They know they would lose if this went to trial, Michael explained. They are cutting their losses. Karren cost them about $20,000 in legal fees and settlements, plus whatever their own attorney charged. That is going to come out of HOA reserves, which means everyone's dues might go up. The homeowners are not going to be happy about that. Karren's criminal case moved forward. I was called to testify at a preliminary hearing, along with Bill. The judge found sufficient evidence to proceed to trial. Karren's attorney tried to negotiate a plea deal, but the prosecutor held firm. The trial was set for 4 months out. Life slowly returned to normal. My business continued growing, and I hired an assistant to help with the increasing workload. I had more diesel trucks in my driveway than ever, but now nobody complained. The new HOA board had even issued a formal statement supporting home-based businesses as long as they complied with city permits. I saw Karren only once after her arrest at the grocery store. She avoided eye contact and hurried away. She looked smaller somehow, defeated. The trial happened in late spring. Bill testified about Karren's offer to pay him for a false statement. The police officers who had responded to Karren's false complaint about my heated fuel filters testified about finding no violations. The DEQ inspector testified about Karren's false environmental complaint. I testified about the months of harassment and the multiple baseless accusations. Karren's defense was that she had genuinely believed I was creating safety hazards, and that she was just trying to protect the neighborhood. The prosecutor shredded that argument by presenting evidence that Karren had continued filing complaints even after receiving multiple professional opinions that my work was safe and legal. The jury deliberated for less than 3 hours. They found Karren guilty of attempted witness tampering and filing false police reports. The judge sentenced her to 1 year in jail, suspended to 6 months of house arrest, 3 years of probation, 200 hours of community service, and a $5,000 fine. She was also ordered to pay restitution to cover some of my legal expenses and to attend anger management counseling. In my 30 years on the bench, Judge Henderson said during sentencing, I have seen numerous HOA disputes. Most are petty disagreements that should be resolved through communication and compromise. This case went far beyond that. Mrs. Brennan engaged in a sustained campaign of harassment against a neighbor operating a legitimate business. She wasted the resources of multiple law enforcement and regulatory agencies with false complaints. She attempted to suborn false testimony. Her actions were calculated, persistent, and criminal. This sentence reflects the seriousness of her misconduct and serves as a warning that HOA disputes do not exempt anyone from the law. Karren was crying as she was led out of the courtroom. Her husband, who I had only seen a handful of times throughout the entire ordeal, looked exhausted and embarrassed. After the trial, Tom organized a neighborhood barbecue. It was partly a celebration of the new HOA board and partly just an excuse to bring everyone together. I brought my grill and cooked burgers while people mingled and kids played in the park. To Frank, Tom said, raising a beer, for standing up to bullying and showing us that even HOAs have to follow the law. People cheered and I felt my face flush with embarrassment, but I also felt vindicated. The months of stress, the legal fees, the constant worry had finally led to something resembling justice. Derek brought his whole family to the barbecue. I have been telling everyone about your work. You are getting a reputation as the guy who does it right, no matter what. I just wanted to do my job, I said. That is why people respect you, Derek replied. Bill, the farmer, drove in from Bellevue specifically for the barbecue. That truck is still running great. No fuel gelling all winter. Best money I ever spent. Over the following months, I watched the neighborhood slowly heal. The new HOA board took a much more reasonable approach to enforcement, focusing on actual problems rather than nitpicking minor violations. They revised the covenant enforcement procedures to include an appeals process and require documented evidence before issuing violations. Tom told me later that they had also changed the bylaws to prevent any one person from having as much unilateral power as Karren had wielded. The president now needed board approval for major actions, and homeowners could request mediation before enforcement actions were taken. My business continued to thrive. I expanded my service offerings and eventually bought the commercial property next door when it went up for sale, converting my home garage back to a regular garage and moving my business operations to a proper shop. Ironically, this meant I no longer needed the home occupation permit, but I kept it active on principle. I still install heated fuel filters regularly, especially as winter approaches. Every time I connect the wiring and test the heating elements, I think about that morning when the police showed up because Karren thought standard safety equipment was hazardous. I think about how close she came to shutting down my business and how much she ultimately lost by refusing to accept that she was wrong. I frame Ray Patterson's inspection report and hang it in my new shop, along with a copy of Judge Henderson's ruling dismissing the HOA's lawsuit. They serve as reminders that doing things the right way, following proper procedures, and standing up for what is right eventually pay off, even when the fight seems overwhelming. One evening, about a year after the trial, I was closing up the shop when a car pulled into the parking lot. For a moment my stomach tightened, old habits from the months of harassment, but it was just a customer picking up his truck. "All set?" he asked as I handed over the keys. "All set. The heated filter system will keep you running even in the coldest weather." "I heard about what you went through with your HOA," the customer said. "My brother had something similar happen with his HOA. They tried to fine him for running a photography business from home. He backed down and stopped. I told him he should have fought it like you did." It was not easy, I admitted. There were times I thought about giving up, but this is my livelihood. Nobody has the right to take that away based on false accusations and harassment. The customer nodded. "Well, I am glad you stuck it out. We need more people willing to stand up to bullies, even when the bullies have some kind of official authority." After he drove away, I locked up and stood in the parking lot for a moment, looking at my shop. The sign over the door read Zimmerman Diesel Services in bold letters. My name. My business. Built through hard work, maintained through determination, and protected by refusing to back down when I knew I was right. Karren served her house arrest and probation without incident. I heard through the neighborhood grapevine that she and her husband moved to a condo in Lincoln about 2 years after the trial. Nobody was sorry to see them go. The Pleasant Grove subdivision is a much more pleasant place now. The HOA still enforces reasonable rules, but there is no more harassment, no more petty citations, no more midnight complaint calls to police and regulatory agencies. People take care of their properties because they take pride in the neighborhood, not because they fear arbitrary punishment. And on cold Nebraska mornings, when temperatures drop below zero and other diesel vehicles struggle to start, my customers' trucks run smoothly, their fuel kept flowing by the heated filters that Karren Brennan once called hazardous. Those filters, those simple, standard pieces of safety equipment, became symbols of something larger than fuel and engines. They represented the right to earn a living, the importance of following proper procedures, and the victory that comes from standing firm against harassment and false accusations. I still live in the same house where all this started. Every time I pull into my driveway, I remember the morning I saw police lights reflecting off my garage windows. I remember the stress, the anger, the fear that I might lose everything I had built. But I also remember the moment Judge Henderson dismissed the HOA's lawsuit, the moment the jury found Karren guilty, and the moment I realized that doing things the right way had been worth every difficult step. My assistant, a young mechanic named Craig who I hired 2 years ago, sometimes asks about the HOA situation when new customers mention it. I tell him the whole story, not to relive the drama, but to teach an important lesson. Stand up for what is right, document everything, follow proper procedures, and never let anyone bully you into giving up something you have legitimately earned. The law exists to protect people who do things correctly, but only if they are willing to defend themselves when necessary. The heated fuel filter installations continue. Every truck that leaves my shop is safer, more reliable, and better equipped for Nebraska winters. And every installation reminds me that sometimes the most ordinary, standard, accepted industry practices can become flashpoints for conflict when people abuse positions of power. But those conflicts, as difficult as they are, can lead to meaningful change when people refuse to back down from doing what is right. Pleasant Grove is home now, truly home, in a way it never was when Karren Brennan was waging her campaign of harassment. The neighborhood barbecues continue, the HOA functions reasonably, and my business grows steadily. I have made real friends here, people who stood by me during the worst of the conflict and celebrated with me when justice prevailed. On the coldest winter nights, when temperatures drop well below zero and the wind howls across the Nebraska plains, I sometimes stand in my shop and watch the heated filter systems glow on the trucks I am servicing. Those heating elements, the very things Karren claimed were dangerous, keep diesel fuel flowing and engines running. They prevent breakdowns, avoid costly repairs, and ensure that farmers, truckers, and working people can rely on their vehicles even in the harshest conditions. That is what this was always about. Not power, not control, not winning some petty dispute. It was about doing good work, helping people solve real problems, and earning an honest living. Karren Brennan forgot that in her quest to exercise authority over her neighbors. She paid a heavy price for that mistake, but more importantly, the neighborhood learned that HOAs exist to serve communities, not to enable personal vendettas. The legal documents from the case sit in a file cabinet in my office. I keep them not as trophies, but as insurance. If anyone ever questions my right to operate my business, if any future HOA board member gets ideas about harassment, those documents tell the complete story of what happens when proper procedures meet baseless accusations. They tell the story of heated fuel filters, diesel mechanics, and the stubborn determination to stand up for what is right, no matter how powerful the opposition might seem. And in the end, that is the lesson worth remembering. Power without legitimacy cannot stand against truth backed by proper procedures. Karren Brennan had the authority of an HOA presidency, but I had city permits, professional certifications, industry standards, and the law on my side. When those forces collided, legitimate authority won, as it should. The sun sets over Pleasant Grove these days without drama, without harassment, without police calls over heated fuel filters. My shop closes each evening with satisfied customers and good work completed. Tom and the HOA board keep the neighborhood running smoothly. And somewhere in Lincoln, I hope Karren Brennan has learned that being in charge does not mean being a bully, and that communities thrive when people focus on cooperation rather than control. The heated fuel filters continue doing their job quietly, reliably, keeping diesel engines running through cold Nebraska winters, just as they always have, just as they always will. Standard equipment, industry accepted, completely safe. Everything Karren insisted they were not. Everything I knew they were. Everything that was ultimately proven in court when truth mattered more than power. And that truth keeps me going, keeps my business growing, and keeps my place in this community secure. Not because I want to fight, but because I refuse to lose one that never should have started in the first place.